Hello, hello. Quick look at what we got here. So, this is the stream I am on now. I got a few things. So, first of all, it is Thursday, October or August 7th. My bad. And I've been going to school nonstop for the past year, and fundamentally dealing with far too much for someone who basically is doing someone else's job for them. Let's put it like that. But okay. So first of all, don't be afraid. I'm just me, regular person, right? So it's water. Always drink water, right? So I have these glasses here. They will record about anything, and they are the Meta Ray Ban glasses here. Excuse the noise in the background. This is just for a minute. I have the screen on. I'm at a regular table here. But these are the glasses, so you can take photographs of whatever you're doing right now. Of course, I don't have anything hooked up. It's not like all AI, like right. And they can record, and they're basically for that, like recording information and it like a picture camera, and then also videotaping. So listening to music, also listening to audio is always good. So this is just an update to basically, the subjectivity of everything, really, right? So the update thing we have here today is obviously, what do I do in my free time? Basically, right? So I'm going to school right now, obviously. Finished psychology major in undergraduate, and then also was working on business, and then kind of working on some history classes right now. So kind of like fundamentally looking at the particularities of disease right now. I'm kind of fundamentally looking at the instructions, what fashion the disease can go through, what relationships to share, what kind of research has been done, kind of like putting that together and quantifying, what is particularly um, the right and wrong. Because of course you don't buy people with money, right? Right and wrong in that scenario doesn't even make sense. Like saying like an objective truth is not a reality, right? It doesn't work that way, right? And you don't prove that kind of thing wrong. So I buy these odd things sometimes, from the store. Today I got, or yesterday or something, I got these scissors. They're dual scissors. I have a habit of stealing my food because basically everything where I live is low income. It's beyond the recognition of income for what you would consider a normal adult. So imagine living in a big city where you pay money, you pay for everything you do. Really, you even have to pay for somebody else's way to get through something, or you get like the big C word. I mean, you complain basically. You get adverts saying, "Oh, I can do this." It doesn't happen. You don't get cut a deal. There's no 50% off, so to speak. There's just kind of a click, like okay, and I'm not saying like, it's a bad thing, that you need something. There's nothing wrong with needing something. And, community wise, like saying, yeah, we can recognize, the store's making money and, we could pool our money into something, you need, right? But when you walk around, the steps of, this or that, right, you can only get so much, Within the past year, I've kind of documented different variations and the extremities of the surrounding area environment. Basic. I try to make it as basic as possible. So there isn't particularities of somebody coming in and stealing your product line, or stealing or in the weird way of like stealing electronics, or like of taking advantage of someone in a particular way, like observing something in a like way, like let's say like vcount or vpn, or something more serious like rape or assault. And, from last year I could see there's quite connection right there. There's connection to a lot. The bad things that you have that are bad for a reason. I mean, people put bad things in bad things. They're almost like gang related, right? If you were to have a piece of wood or a piece of plastic, would you choose the wood or plastic to have? You'd probably choose the wood because it's more grounded, right? But you wouldn't because you'd have splinters on your hands, right? But the point is the same, right? You can't have metal that you can't have metal. I mean, it takes somebody to mine the metal. It takes like like slave labor almost, right? You go back to these ideas that like something that does not exist cannot exist. You cannot just go into the backyard of someone's house and go mine metal. It doesn't work that way. It takes like a serious amount of commitment, money, and respect for the environment, somewhat, right? So particularly, it's bad habit to find something you can't do normally, right? As they put it, and that's not even English. That's anyone's language, right? You can only live once, life once. That's the motto, right? So make of it what you should, right? So technically, I do this to record data, and I see, certain people like kind of like trying to habitualize rather than ritualize the environment, the idea, right? And so, and one thing in sociology and criminal justice you learn is not to, pacify what you have, which is, find a realm towards, the personification or, the value in what you're looking for. And I know it's stubborn, right? And a lot of people say, "Oh no, don't cut the tree down. We can make a tree. We can make wood." It doesn't work that way, particularly. It doesn't particularly work that way at all. At all. So what I'm saying is, the ritualization of sociology and chronology, right, is about much more than the value of wanting or needing. It's about the value of including yourself into a sociological commitment, right? It's about finding value within not like humor or or ritualism, like an animal ritualism, right? Like kind of like something like we count the night and that's it, we're dead, or we've gone so far, now we're going to die, right? You need to drink water, you need to eat food. These are normal things. So that's what I'm trying to say, right? You don't drink seawater because seawater is poisonous. Where I live, they put literally 10% of the water. It has sea water in it or something like that. It's super high. So think of it, what you will, and think about, is it necessary to technically drink seawater, right? There isn't a real solution. I mean, of course, it's not great to drink seawater, I think, right? Is it good to like eat paper or like, do like things that have a lot of chloride in them? Or like, to do things that can deplete chloride. I mean, like the like poison or like, the habitualization of like, civilization. It's not inclusive, right? So in like even the world and like, serious like viruses and diseases, there's some inclusive thought there, right? Paper wasn't always there. We don't have documentation of all these things. It isn't the way it is. So, the particularities of, one value versus the other, yeah, it's an estimate, and the clusters or whatever functions you have linear regression, they don't add up, right? Error functions are not what error functions are. They're built on a solution. Like a normal average probability would include five, right? A population of something that's half 10, right? In a perfect world scenario, because it would be countable, right? But in the reference of like finding something that is, let's say, like a population of like two, right, or one or three, right? There isn't a solution to something that has no nomenclature. If there's no number or an inclusive worst inclusive number, then there's no range, right? Meaning, you don't have a way to illustrate that you have met one something, one unit, right? You have no happiness, no satisfaction, no particularity. So that value is like not none, but it's a fraction, right? You don't have partial fractions because that's not normal. There's no solution for partial fractions. You can have one or two. You can have moment, right? You can have a value. You can have dual things. You can have value, right? Like a tree. But the value is seclusive. It is something made, and it takes work, right? Time's money, right? Money is time. Like paper. So the point, I'm trying to say, is, it is what it is. So right now I'm going through, there's a multiple projects. Just she's it's a little tiring, right? I've like so many roommates. It's poor. My community, you don't know if the next person now is their house, it's been invaded and babysitted by like some random person. It just doesn't add up, environment, like, right? Because it doesn't It's not the suggestion part. It's that these ideas that someone can hold dear, like ritual ideas, like real ideas, like if someone were to feed you bread, it's enjoyable to have at home, right? But what if the person pretty the point out every day, like there's a murderer in town, right? Or there's like somebody selling cocaine at the McDonald's, Burger King. You're like, yeah, no, thank you. It's the two finger to the head kind of conjecture. It's like you need to start thinking about what you're doing, or like a child lying, or what other particularities are there, right? I mean, you look for like your favorite show online. Let's say it's Canadian. You're like, oh, this is my favorite food show, right? You're like, I can't buy it, but then you're like, oh, I found it somewhere else. I could have it, or like the comedian show. I like, oh, I can have it, but I can't. Yeah, I can't buy it only on a CD-ROM. And you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Why would I have something I cannot have? So like you draw a line there, like a conjecture, and it kind of like slips off. And you're like, why would you have something you can't need, or you have to have? Doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you have a conjecture of like, one value, friction kind of going down and kind of like insignificant one. You're like, oh, I'm pushing it away, right? And you're like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, that's the opposite of what I want. So it is to that, and whatever that is. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So, okay, I have many things. So, I even bought cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, and I've been handing them out to observe the behavior of COVID-19, or just kind of the particulars of how would you smoke in the first place. So, there's that. This is a marathon box. If you haven't seen Marathon, that's a literal marathon box for watch. Got an actual deal. This is one deal I did get. And it was $10 for a watch that has like a value of almost like $1,000. If you, not this certain watch, but I'm not entirely sure how they got it or where they bought it. But um, looks cool. Looks nice. So that's one cool thing. I got these Cheerios. I feed the birds sometimes, obviously, even though there's whatever here. Oh, I have this PSA slip, the codes, obviously. I mess with that. More Cheerios. I eat this on a snack, just dry goods, right? The plastic, it's always interesting. So these are things I categorize all the time. I have this Access cell phone, good for 911 calls. Don't buy the little satellite phone. And then I even have this little hat here. So it's a what is that hat? It's a hat. It's a I'll have to look up the logo or whatever. And then I got this lately. It's a I got it straight, I think from China. Shipped the next day. It was here like the literal next day. I was like, whoa, what's up with that on eBay? $1, thanks. It was a fan. So I bought the static bags, obviously, but they did include on my eBay purchase $1 fan, 99 cents. I was like, can't complain there. Got the stethoscope. Obviously, to check the heart. Anyone who really needed their heart checked, and of course it's 10:33 right now. I'm not trying to make any noise right now. I'm not in the public. So basically, those are a few things that I have. The things like you might need, like going on, like let's say the transit every day. You might need like tissue paper in case like your nose gets runny or things like that, or whatever you might need, you can get it like at the store. It's super easy, and you can also get these Lysol cans at the store. They're like $3, but like if you like have like some sort of like effective poisoning, I've gotten it before where I've become not overwhelmed, but like there's like air or chlorine or something like that, or some sort of like gas or something, or like some sort of noxious fluid, or somebody like touched something on the transit. I just spray myself down with this, or like some foreign contaminant at the store. Just spray yourself with that. Something's good with the seawater. I'm not sure if that helps, but it was good. Oh, and then I did review this last time. I've been studying the idea of this more and more, the hydrogen reading. So it's good. I mean, it's my personal idea that, drugs in my psychology class under pressure that I've all completed in my last volunteer job, use none of this. But, this helped me develop this idea that, drugs like barbiturates have hydrogen in them. But, it's another story, and, the ATGC acronym discussion group. But basically, I've been looking at these things. I have, again, zero for zero up top, right here, zero for zero. But I often have these Pepto-Bismol I bought more than 6 or 7 months ago. You know, what does it do? I mean, it's the same stuff in the cereal. I know. It is what it is, but the value of it is so extreme. It's like, how would you know what chloride is if you didn't have chloride? If nobody knew in the world, what would be the fresh start? You know, there's that. I mean, they say, for the bubonic plague, crushing up eggshells and adding molasses and certain flour, and then drinking 2 cups of beer will help. Or, they also say, 2 cups of urine will help as well. So you be the judge of that. If you use, bismuth, this is bismuth, right? Distilled rock, and you put it in the ocean, it will evacuate the engines on the nearby, port. So think about it what you will. So, it's not like exact science like Purdue or, the other big one, right? Not Purdue Pharma, but not Monsanto, but the other one, always, you can always make a formula like me. I think I made an update about my hydrogen depleting formula. This is one of the modules here. This is the first official one. It's extract of grape vinegar and then extract of apple vinegar combined to make a hydrogen depleting formula. Mm, It's interesting. So I think it's successful at that. I have this can of, you ever heard of the movie called and show called, not, oh, how big my spoon is. So I basically got a tin can of pork fat, bacon, and beans. And I also got fish. You try it out, and I offered it to my roommate without him knowing. It was specifically just for the forte of animation. But there's other things too. I got mushroom soup to kind of look at the plague like idea for like mushrooms have a lot to do with the plague. Basically, they're England, right? So they're like poisonous in some sort of matter. Mushrooms congruently are also a process in making bleach. So little do you learn it until you basically start meddling it like an alchemist. Oh, and here's another can of that, 100% used. You know, I usually go to Target to get my things, and I say that because basically all of these things, right? Some of them, most of the things you just seen. I mean, I could have gotten at Target, but and all these, and I got this flash to check the peoples of those who are dilating, like the peoples are dilating like addicts in the street. Basically. I mean, do I do work? I mean, I never got one job. What was one job offer I got from an insurance agency, but then I found out they were mostly being fraudulent, and then they kind of hijacked my network, and they won't let me go, basically. But the guy seemed legitimate because he was in the military. I think he said he was in the military, but he said he got stabbed. The cop. So I called them. They never showed. Like they never talked to me, or like the other instance, like I had a criminal syndicate in the police who was related to one of the killers of my uncle. He followed me around, so there was no way I could get the criminal record, so to speak, of what I did to turn in, basically, to get the job. It was a no go, no show. But it's not a big deal. So I have this, and basically, at this instance, I have to actually reject the offers if there was ever like plea offer for the idea of getting a job where I have to sort of agree I've done bad. I just have to say, I turn it down. So basically, the instance of that is, whatever it is. I even have this. It's called a knocker for an engine. I got for convertible engine here. To check basically the idea of an ignition knocker, kind of like messing with signals in the environment. The other day, I got a particular I got a particular unit for shutting off or turning on electrical equipment when it's nighttime. I thought that was interesting. But it is what it is. And then also got this. I mean, if you've ever seen something like this, it's a it's a digital. It is a digital. It is a digital telescope. Or no, it's not a telescope. It's a microscope. Digital microscope. So you ask me why? I mean, like probably because I want to see what a voicing is. So I got this little thing here. Knows what that is, obviously. But think about the ideas here. Like you have all these pieces together in your mind, and you're like, why don't these go together? Like, do I need to bring a sock with me so I don't get arrested as a police officer? I mean, like, God to God. I mean, you know, when hear this, and I say this to myself sometimes, I say, Austin, what is the one thing that separates someone who understands an issue like this and who does not, right? And I say this to my roommates sometimes, and I forget like there's so much, I have to think about it. It just makes me kind of look like I don't know what to say, right? So the particularities of like, one thing, and sometimes like, people don't believe me. Sometimes like people say, no, you're sham. You're dodging the question. You're doing something stupid. You're an idiot. I say like, no, not exactly. It's more about, the comprehension of what basically is right and wrong. So when you look I kind of found it in kind of scripture a little bit, and I recently like, went across it, when I was looking into a certain religion, which is a Christian religion, and the value which it holds, which is the idea of Godhead. So in Hinduism, Godhead is a value that is it's like top notch, right? It's the value of like delinquents, or the delicacy of like your identity versus like the identity of a partidium, like the parting of God within, or the withstood hold of relative spiritualism, right? Not like existentialism, where you believe in your thoughts. It is about particularly feeling an identity about humanities in a way, right? If Gloria is the humanities, right, for humans, then like the black flag is for like animals, for like death. Like I'm not in the ninth grade, so that's the way I put it. You know, so when you think about Godhead, it's particularly not like the moment of spiritualism. It's about um, not being delusional, but kind of like respecting the past in a way, for me at least. But the idea of something like Godhead to the Christian religion is about something different. It's about manhood. So I'm gonna close the stream right now, basically, and that will be it. So thank you.